Margam, South Wales, site of the biggest steel and tin plate development scheme in Britain, the Abbey Works. We are back again to report on the second year of construction. When we reported last, in spring 1948, work was still mostly around ground level. Reinforcement was going up for the soaking pits, last stage of the white-hot ingots before being rolled out into slab and then stripped. And some of the framework for the shops was already complete. But mostly the site looked like a crazy map. 1 year had changed it from this to this. What's been happening in the second year? Let's take a look at the layout of the works as they will be when finished. Here's a detail of one of the key buildings, the mould yard. In May 1948, it was still a skeleton. In July, the roof was going on, corrugated aluminium sheeting, while down below, the first travelling crane was being hoisted into place. By the way, this kind of roof is brand new and scares even the experts when they first walk on it. A month later, the travelling crane was being tested. It would be needed to play its part in the mould yard's first job, a factory for prefabricating steel girders for some of the other buildings. August 1948. November. The plan was taking shape. At the other end of the site, in the existing Margam steelworks, more coke ovens are being built. In May 1948, the engineers were still up to their necks in the problem of waterlogged foundations. By September, the now familiar tangle of shuttering and reinforcement was being clothed with concrete and work was well above ground. November 1948. April 1949. As well as having their water troubles, the coke oven engineers were hampered by a railway track which serves Port Talbot docks, and now must be moved and reconstructed. 6 new bridges have to be built, and a mile of new embankment has to be consolidated. This new track has to cross the main line serving South Wales. And on one wet Sunday in October, the new bridge was laid. November 1948. Well on the way. All over the site throughout the year, recognizable shapes were built up out of the confusion. What in the summer was still a muddy hole in the ground, overlooked by acrobats, emerged toward the end of the year as the coal washery, the pump house, which in the spring of 1948 was another hole in the ground, only this time a very large hole needing tall concrete sides. By late summer was a complicated job half finished. And in April 1949 was really beginning to look like a pump house. By September 1948, the outfall culvert, which is to carry away surplus water from the site, was halfway through the dunes which lie between the site and the sea. To build this culvert, special shuttering was used, capable of being moved along as each section of concreting was finished. In May 1948, the soaking pits were still at foundation stage. But by January 1949, their chimneys were already going up beside them. In May 1948, the new blast furnace was just beginning to grow from the cleared site of the old furnace. To carry the vast weight of iron ore and coke and limestone, which would be melted on its 25-foot, 9-inch hearth, the concrete base must be more heavily reinforced than anything else in the whole project. By February 1949, the base was complete, and in April, the furnace was going up fast. The plan was taking shape indeed. Late in the summer, the mould yard began its job as a factory for prefabricating steel girders. Inside, giant manipulators were assembled, while outside, a Goliath crane was set up to handle the girders as they were completed. These rings will contain the girders and turn them over for easy working. In November, the Goliath crane is nearly finished, and the first girder is hauled out of the mould yard. Over at Trustre, site of a coal rolling mill which is to be the Abbey Works opposite number, the last recognizable feature of the old farm disappeared in August. Culverts and drains were being completed. This one is being laid on a special raft to prevent it sinking into the ground. And throughout the year, piling of the site went on. The pile tops are tidied up and made level, ready for the concrete raft which will bind them together. In July, work was starting on the mill foundation, and the site looked like this. And in April 1949, Trustre too was beginning to take shape. In the autumn, machinery for the rolling mills at Abbey and Trustre began to arrive from the United States. This mill housing for the coal mill at Trustre weighed 97 tons. The floating crane was only supposed to lift 100 tons, which accounts for the anxious looks on some faces. From then on, there were regular arrivals at Port Talbot for Abbey and at Swansea for Trustre. And the pile of machinery is still growing. Symbolic of the speed at which the landscape is changing is the work on the cooling tower. This was its base at the end of August. And this was how far work had progressed by January. March, nearly finished, 4 months ahead of schedule. Let's go up it. On top worked men, most of whom had no previous training for work at heights, but whose confidence grew with the tower itself. All the concrete on which they've been raised sky high came out of one small concrete mixer. Below them, the great works takes on its ultimate appearance. The pump house. The rolling mill. Still a long way to go here. The washery conveyor in the distance. The central repair shop. The Goliath making the furnace bay. The mould yard, an ingot stripper bay beyond. The plan takes shape.